hopping in your car to go for a spin. Talk to me. Where'd you find this jewel?
Well, I found this, it's a 74, and what happened was I was at a shop that had done some work for me, and this car was in a corner of the shop covered in dust and hadn't moved for years, and it was a clean California chassis, so I was really interested in it, but they had no interest in selling. So a few years later, I kept after them, and finally the owner realized that the shop was never going to get the car done. So I was able to buy it and pull it out of there and get started on it. Cold start, the temp is all the way down. So the car's a 74. When I bought it, it was a short hood, and we converted it to a long hood and gave it the RSR look. And when I bought it, it had a 3.2 in it, but we changed that. So it has a 3.6 with a fresh 915 limited slip. The 3.6, when we put it in, I had Mark Kinninger went through it, and so he did a top end, changed cams, went through it all. That was about, let me see, just under 1,200 miles ago. So the car's basically fresh. It's really easy to drive, it's smooth, but it's tight. I mean, it just holds the road beautifully. I always build cars that I like for myself, but this car is built really for the street. However, and I don't recommend this because I don't like to take beautiful cars to the racetrack. It tends to destroy them. But this car, if it went to a racetrack, could easily hold its own because the suspension, the brakes, everything are up to snuff. So the seats are, I think, really comfortable. The leather is a blood red leather that was used in a Mercedes. It's available today. So, and I actually have some extra. So anyway, I like a car that's easy to get in and out of. I'm not getting any younger. And but this actually holds you in nice and tight without being annoying. So, you know, some cars you get in them and the seats are so tight. And my butt's just not that small.
Not
so
anymore,
never has been. Anyway, because the car is really responsive. It's easy to drive. It's easy to take off in first gear, but it's got plenty of power. And we'll get on the freeway here. I'm gonna leave a little space. I don't like to get behind trucks.
Nice, man.
So the car's got some clear broad done, and but not the whole car, and like the front bumper and some things like that. But the flares in front of the flares are all clear broad because anytime you have a wide car, the rock chips tend to tear it up.
Right.
We're in fifth gear. We're running about 2,500 RPMs. We're going to merge onto another road. Hopefully we won't hit as much traffic. So.
Now, how long have you been kind of a Porsche fanatic?
Well, it's funny. I grew up in Detroit around cars all my life, and I've always loved cars. From before I had a license, I drove my parents nuts trying to buy a first car. And I would buy cars that were in car accidents. I'd buy anything I could buy and fix and sell, like clean cars. But, you know, I had some Corvettes for a while. But then, when I got to San Diego, I kind of got into Porsches.
When did you come to San Diego?
Oh gosh, it's been about 35 years. So of course, you know, I started out buying less expensive Porsches. My first one was a 944 which I loved. And then after about 3 or 4 months, I didn't think it was fast enough. But I loved the car. I loved the lines. And I felt really fortunate to be able to buy it. So over the years, I would sell a car, buy a nicer one, and then I found that I really liked the look of the long hood RSR. When you build your own, you can do things like changing the door panels. Like, I like it with a pocket in the door, which is where my wallet is right now, and you can have place for paperwork, and where typically a lot of people build just a flat door panel.
Right.
I like a car to be more useful.
This color is certainly not something you see every day. What attracted you to slate gray?
Well, the car, when I bought it, it was slate gray, but the paint job wasn't very good. So I like it because it's subtle. Normally, I really like loud cars, Viper green, orange, that kind of thing. But this is much more subtle. It's not black. I mean, I've had black cars, I've had red cars, but this slate gray is different. And in different light, it looks totally different. It sometimes can have like a green look to it, like a deeper green. But the gray is just very attractive, and you'll see in the pictures, it shows just the curves and everything are, I think, beautiful.
Well, I will say that it almost looks like molten mercury in some of the light, where there's so much of a shine to it. It's like a cross between mercury and chrome, but it's a gray car. How does that happen?
It's really the way the light hits it. It'll look totally different.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a great color. Then also, I mean, we have the pop-out windows in the back, and then crank windows, and then we went with the deep gray wool. This car also does have Bluetooth, which works with your phone, so you can talk on your phone with hands-free, or you can play your stereo. And there's nothing on the dashboard, so the dashboard is clean. But the amp is in the trunk, and it's got speakers on the rear shelf and in the doors. But there's no speaker grills. The upholstery shop, I had Oscar at Escondido Custom Upholstery. He hand perforates each hole, and he perforated all the leather for the speakers. And that way, you don't get that ugly grill showing.
Right. What kind of speakers did you put in?
I don't remember. I know they were expensive. I went to a speaker guy and said, I want the best speakers that fit in this car, and that's what we got. So, same with the amp. But, I didn't go crazy. It's not a $18,000 stereo system or anything.
Right.
But it works beautifully. And so for me, it's great, and it's nice to be able to be hands-free. Then also, it's like the windshield is new. I'm just not one to put an okay windshield back in a car. It just doesn't make sense when you're building a car like this. So, and then same with the dashboard. Basically, I order the dashboards from Porsche, and then Oscar covers them.
There we go.
So that's about 100 miles an hour at 4,000 RPMs.
Kid would have been saying, faster, Daddy, faster.
Yeah, 100's fast enough. I mean, the car, I've never really wound it out to find out how fast it really will go. But with that 3.6, it just goes.
Right.
And again, if you're in fifth gear and you step on it, it takes off. And it's got, just the suspension is great. So it handles like a dream. There's no shake. You know, you can drive it with a finger. You could take this car to a track day, but that's not what I do. So I just think it's a great car, and it's a lot of fun.
You're gonna be sad to see it go?
I'm gonna see it's gonna be sad to see it go, but I'm actually building an orange one that I've always wanted, an orange GT3 RS, and I can't really afford a GT3 RS, so I'm building one. But it'll be another long hood.
What brand seats are these? Where'd you get them?
Actually, I bought these seats from TRE in Hollywood.
Dave, who's
And
on them?
yeah, Dave. Dave had built these seats for another customer, and the customer decided to go a different direction. And he called me, and he sent me some pictures and said, he said, I know you're working on a car, and these are like awesome seats. You should look at them. So I bought them, and then he proceeded to send me all the leftover leather they had when they built the seats.
Okay.
And so, fortunately, though, I was able to buy more of that leather to do all the door panels and I'm not sure if this is, it's hard to see the color of the headliner.
Yeah.
But, you know, for the back panel and everything else. So, it's nice when you can buy something that's stock, because if you get a tear in something, you can always repair it.
Right.
So, yeah, that was, I was very fortunate, actually. When Dave called me, I looked at the seats, I said, oh, I love those. So, anyway. And then you'll see Mark Kinninger from Black Forest, who's been the head mechanic at Black Forest for 34 years, who has a tremendous reputation. If you have any questions about it, look up Kinninger Racing or Kinninger Built, and or Black Forest, and you'll see that Mark's been there a long time. And again, I'm really fortunate to work with somebody of his caliber, because he can fix anything. And he's not just a guy who assembles a motor or puts a transmission together. He knows why it works right and what's wrong and how to tweak it. I've actually had a transmission built by somebody else, and then it didn't shift just right. Mark will tear it down and say, oh, he did all this, but he forgot to do this one little thing. Or he'll file something or whatever, and then it becomes an easy car to drive. So
he's kind of crazy that way,
and he's such a perfectionist, which really kind of goes along with, I'm a little OCD myself, and it's kind of a really good thing, because he and I see eye to eye. My attitude when doing something like building this car is to, if it costs a little bit more, just go ahead and spend the money. You're not going to go through all the trouble to build a beautiful car and then chintz on something. Right. So it's like, Mark wasn't thrilled with the top end on the motor, so he just tore it apart and put new cams in it and started over. So anyway, getting back in here to the shop. I love driving this car, and every time I do, it's a thrill. And every time I do, I think, maybe I shouldn't sell it. I've thought about selling it before, and then I start driving it more, and then I don't, but, sometimes you just kind of have to do it.